humans have the power of innovation, while machines are good at repetitive tasks. And that's something we need to keep saying to people, because there's this fear that robots and AI will take over, when actually we still need humans to drive innovation.
Humans and machines treading new ground together.
ChatGPT has also opened up new avenues in education. Released in November 2022, this AI tool had more than 1 million users in just 5 days. But what's so special about it? Here are 3 tips on how you can make the most of this chatbot.
No time to read a full article? ChatGPT can summarize it. Just copy and paste the link and ask the AI chatbot to write up some bullet points. The topic is too complex to understand? Ask the chatbot to break it down for you, step by step. You're having trouble with research? ChatGPT can help find sources or give you a general overview. But beware, ChatGPT's training data can quickly become outdated. Although developers are experimenting with search features that include current events, they're only available to paid subscribers. And don't forget, every answer provided by ChatGPT needs to be fact-checked. And students especially should take note. Universities are currently debating if and how AI tools like ChatGPT should be used in the future, and how that might change our understanding of authorship. Completely banning AI tools is probably not going to work, though.
Das Beste ist eigentlich, die KI-Technologie nicht zu verbieten, sondern eine Einigung mit den Studierenden zu finden, auf welche Weise man kompetent die Techniken einsetzen kann, um hochqualitative Texte zu erreichen. Und das ist dann eben nicht, sich einfach nur den Text zu schreiben zu lassen, sondern mit dem KI-Tool zusammen einen Text über mehrere Iterationen hinweg zu entwickeln und ein eigenes Argument mithilfe der KI auszugestalten.
Artificial intelligence is basically like a giant toolbox. If you know how the tools work and which to use to fix a specific problem, it can be really useful. At Deutsche Welle, we do not currently publish any journalistic work produced from generative AI, but DW is looking for ways to responsibly harness the potential of so-called large language models.
When it comes to comment moderation on social media, can ChatGPT help write a program that generates replies or filters out offensive or discriminatory comments? We turn to the chatbot to try and do just that.
I can say, I have no idea of coding, for example, which is what we did, and it will reply, okay, let's help you with that.
And it worked. In no time, one team had managed to create a prototype with the help of ChatGPT.
I'm a journalist, right? I'm not a coder, but I can do these things because I get help with AI, and it's just expanding your capabilities.
The journalists give directions as to what the program should do, and the AI bot writes the code.
I asked for a code, it gave me a code, but I had no idea how the code works. It's just numbers and like no digits to me, some alphabets to me, but I don't know how it produced, what's the idea behind the code, all these things. So I don't really imagine it to be a teacher, but definitely I'm very sure it will help you.
Benjamin Paassen cautions against viewing AI tools as independent and autonomous.
Ich habe ein bisschen Schwierigkeiten damit, das KI-Tool als gleichwertiges Gegenüber einzuordnen. KIs sind keine bewussten Menschen. KIs sind Werkzeuge, die uns unterstützen bei unserer Arbeit. Aber in der Tat, ich glaube schon, dass ein Team aus Mensch und KI-gestützter Bildungstechnologie, KI-Werkzeug effektiver sein kann, höhere Qualität produzieren kann als ein Mensch alleine oder ein KI-Werkzeug alleine.
But there's more to digital learning than AI. So-called edutainment apps are fun, but also informative. Loveland, for example, is used for sex education. Questions on this topic aren't always easy to ask, and answers from the internet aren't necessarily correct.
These students in Cape Town have a special assignment today. They're testing out the edutainment game, Loveland.
We need young people to help us to create the game, give us critical feedback and say, oh, this is really boring, oh, this is really cool.
In the game, users need to complete levels on different islands that each stand for an issue of their own, like contraception or mental health. 14-year-old Sibirele and her friends have already tested the app.
The thing that I like about the app is it is not offensive. it is you learn, but you're also playing at the same time.
The game doesn't only focus on sex, because it also focuses on boosting people's lows, boosting people's self-esteem.
Karen Stierlin has tested the app in many countries. She realised that teenagers around the world usually have the same questions, and they often trust misinformation from the internet.
I experienced them very interested and very eager to learn, but you need to give them the space, the safe space. So that's what we try to make with London, with only proper and age-appropriate information. The long-term consequences of lack of sexual education are often very hard and kicks them out of economy and social life.
Sibulele agrees that there's a lack of proper sex education in her community.
In South Africa, it's rare for a parent to teach you about sex, and that's why you find many teenagers in South Africa and having these diseases and getting pregnant. You are told to not have sex, but they don't tell you the consequences. And we, as teenagers, we want to know, if I were to do this, what would happen? And you end up trying to do so, you know.
Edutainment apps are successful because they incorporate playful elements, which can reinforce learning. The school director is pleased his pupils are taking part.
I want them to be the pioneer, so that when they master that, it's going to be actually easy for our school to adopt that game as a way of learning and create awareness when it comes to sexual education.
For the teenagers, this means learning by playing.
Digital learning opens up new possibilities. So, will human instructors become obsolete in the future? I, for one, am skeptical. Could you imagine learning new things with only a computer and AI? Or would you prefer human support? Let us know what you think. Bye-bye.
Simfungulie huyu. Ati? Nimesema sifunguliwe huyu. Sasa basi nakupa ruksa. Nenda ukaishi huko. Toroka. Rudi mafichoni Kalume, utakuja shikwa. Wewe usinikumbushe Sudi.
Ni nini mpenzi?
Wewe ukitaka kujua mtu mzima na meno 32 nitetee na mpenzi.
Kini?
Hakuna cha lakini. Nilikuwepo, sikuambiwa. Habarisha wanakisiwa wote kwamba yeyote atakayeniletea taarifa za aliko Kalume nitampatia donge nono. Hebu toka nje. Toa ama nikumalize. Simama hapo. Nataka uambie hawa watu lile jambo ulikuja kusema hapa jana usiku.
Are you a talented artist? Or are you passionate about a topic you want to discuss? But money can be very hard to find for an upcoming artist. Don't worry, Studio Mashinani has got your back. Sign up on ajira.co.ke to book a session with your music and video producers across the country. Work on your music, jingles, spoken words, and even podcasts to realize your dream. All for free. Studio Mashinani, Radani Talent.
Good morning and welcome to News Check on this, the 4th of February 2025. My name is Abdiaziz Hashim and the sign language interpreter at the bottom end of the screen is Lucy Moura. Our focus this morning will be about femicide cases that have been reported across the country, as well as addressing the concerns of gender-based violence. Given that this is the top of the hour, we're also keeping an eye on various events that are unfolding across the country, and some of them is that there will be a cancer awareness event that is currently happening here in the capital, and Joseph Wahungu is on that particular beat. The Council of Governors are set to address at exactly 11 a.m. in matters to do with the Devolution Conference 2025. They'll get to announce which county will get that particular privilege of hosting this year's Devolution Conference. And of course, our main topic will be tackling femicide and gender-based violence. So reach out to us on our social media platforms at KBC Channel 1 and at Abdiaziz Hashim too. Before I introduce my guest this morning, let me give you a little bit of background of what has been happening in the country between the year 2024 and 2025. Now, in a report, 2024 was termed as to be the worst year for femicide cases here in the country, where according to a recent report titled Silencing Women, 170 femicide cases were documented over the past 12 months, a significant increase in comparison to previous years. Now, the report, commissioned by data analytics firm that is Odipodef in collaboration with African Censored, revealed that most affected groups are women aged between 18 and 35, with intimate partner violence being the primary cause of death. Now, the number are staggering to say the least, where according to also the Deputy Inspector General of Police, that is Eliud Langat, last year, clearly stated that law enforcement recorded 97 femicide cases that were reported at various police stations in just past 3 months of that particular year. Now, that's roughly one woman killed every day, which is very concerning. At the Nairobi Women's Hospital, Gender-Based Violence Recovery Centers has reported that the situation is equally grim, with approximately 4,000 gender-based violence GBV cases reported monthly. However, the true scale of the problem may not even have recorded, especially in the rural and marginalized areas that have, of course, these cases have not been equally represented like the ones in the city. Notably, that the figure does not include the infamous, also, you do remember about the Quarry murders, where the prime suspect, Collins Jumaisi, who is still at large, who escaped police custody, confessed of having killed 42 women before discarding their bodies in that particular quarry. Now, Nairobi County recorded the highest number of femicide cases, followed closely by Nakuru and Kiambu. According to the same report, 75% of femicide cases were perpetrated by someone they know, somebody who's known to the victim, including intimate partners, friends or family members, and clearly stating that alarmingly 72% of these killings took place within the confines of the victim's home, underscoring the deep-rooted and often hidden nature of this violence. There is also a glimmer of hope, where the Kenya's judicial system begins to hand down tougher sentences to the people who are found convicted, and the number of conviction for femicide cases in 2024 rose to 118%. And then finally, in response to the alarming rise of femicide cases, President William Ruto appointed a 42-member task force to investigate the issue and recommend the solution. Also, the head of state last year clearly stated that 100 million will be going to addressing some of these concerns. And the task force, led by the former Deputy Chief Justice, that is Nancy Baraza, is expected to present its report within 90 days. The initiative is seen as a critical step in addressing the systemic issues that contribute to the femicide and gender-based violence in the country. Now, to help us at least get a scope of what is happening in this particular sector, joining me this morning is Mildred Opondo, the Global Head of Women Achievers Africa. Mildred, good morning and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Good morning.
Next to Mildred, we do have Pauline Oguko, the Director of Motisha Dada. Pauline, welcome.
Thank you.
And then finally, we do have a legislator in the House, Honorable Cynthia Muge, the MP of Nandi County. Mheshimiwa, karibu sana.
Thank you.
And maybe let me start with you, Mheshimiwa, as I make my way this way. Given that you, in this particular three arm of the government, you serve in the legislative arm of the government, the President clearly gave out at least 100 million shilling to address this particular issue. In your view, the statistics that I've mentioned here, what could be the cause of this problem?
Thank you so much, Abdiaziz, and my fellow panelists for having me today here at KBC. It's always a pleasure to be here. Of course, it's not an interesting topic that we're handling today, and of course, I can't say that I'm happy to be here, but I am glad that we're having this conversation at a national level. And you've asked a very ambiguous question of why is it happening, and probably how should we tackle it. So as to why it's happening, it's something that I am also hoping to know why it's happening, and I am glad that President has put together the technical working group on the gender-based violence, of course, which is culminating to femicide. If you look at how gender-based violence is perpetrated, it is actually the epitome, femicide is the epitome of the gender-based violence, because it starts from bottom here. Emotional abuse, the physical abuse, mental, things that happen that look so small, but at the end of the day, it culminates to femicide. We have so many things because it has been a problem that we have been facing, and I must say that in the last 2 weeks, actually 2 weeks, I have had 2 women, Winnie and Carol, brutally murdered in Nandi County by their intimate partners. That coming from one constituency, which is a Aldai constituency, is not just a wake-up call, but it is also scary, because it tells you that it is just at the doorstep. Previously you would be talking about statistics saying Nairobi, saying Kiambu, saying Nakuru. We would be looking at it and saying that these are the urban towns, these are the urban counties. But it is in the village, a village in Kemeloi, a village in Kabwarek. Those are deep villages down there. It tells you it is not only happening in towns, it's not only happening in cities, it is happening in our villages, and it is heartbreaking. And I'm glad that we're having this conversation, so that as a country, as a community, as a people, we can be able then to identify what really causes it, and that we can be able to finally find a cure for it. Because to be honest, if you listen to the stories as to why so-and-so did this, if they happen to survive, because some of them actually commit suicide after killing their partners, you hear so many different and wide-ranging reasons, and you can't even tell what it is exactly. So there is no definite cause of the same, but we must, as a community, we must, as a people, be able to find the root cause and try to start to address it. Not try, but start to actually address it, because we cannot continue losing women and even men. Most of the time people, we are paying attention to femicide, but I don't know what we call the male one. I don't know if it's androcide or whatever, but we must address it, because there are also men who are killed by women. So what we are talking about is we must bring to an end the killing of human beings, regardless of whether they are women or men. It must end, and it must stop as a country.
Okay. Pauline, these are not just figures. 170 femicide cases. These are women who are killed. These are mothers at the end of the day. They have kids that they have left behind. In your view, even in this particular sector that has just been brought together by the president, what are some of the key areas they need to address right now so that those issues can stop at the end of the day?
Thank you so much, Aziz. I'm equally, I wouldn't say excited, but happy that we are now voicing our voices. Just as you've rightly said, talking of 1 woman per day, that's a disaster in my own view. And working in an organization known as Motisha Dada, right in the village. Motisha Dada comes from the word motivator system. I recall post-COVID, the gender that was mostly affected were the women. And on this note, they're affected in terms of their vulnerability, issues of commercial sex workers. It surrounded women majorly, and I think that's where we birthed Motisha Dada. But what is striking right now, just as Mheshimiwa has also said, that even in the rural parts of this country right now, we are hearing women being killed. While I may want to agree that we have some men being killed, but the data in terms of women is higher. I appreciate the fact that we're having several technical working groups, and especially the one that the president brought on board, but in my own view, there is more that needs to be done. You will agree with me, what happened during the time I was growing, it was unheard of. So where did the rain start beating us? Is the family fabric, is it still there? Why would your partner, an intimate partner, kill you? Those are questions that are begging, that even as the working groups are put in place, as people go out to find solutions, we should start from the root cause. I'm an nurse by profession, and one of the things we always say, don't treat a disease if you've not looked at the signs and the symptoms, because it will keep recurring. Gender-based violence has been a topic in this country for a long time, and we all know that femicide is actually the extreme part of the gender-based violence. Is it that the structures that we put in place in the earlier ages did not work, that now it has escalated to femicide? And I will tell you, we are staring at a disaster, because my young child growing up is now making it look like, is it normal to kill a woman that you love? Is it normal to kill a woman who says no to your advances? Because what is happening right now, if you look at the news, what happens is that most of these partners run away to their homes. And it is there that the other partner follows them, kills them at the doorstep of their parents. The fear that now we are having in a country like this right now is something worth thinking about. So I believe, yes, we are trying. The president has put in place some measures, but there is more. Because for me, even where are the religious leaders? There are so many players that need to come on board. By the way, if we take it away from the boardrooms, then we'll get it. But as long as it remains in our books, boardrooms, then we will still get it not right. You've heard Mheshimiwa also say, and I also say the same thing, you do not have data from Siaya County in terms of the rural part. So how many of these women are being killed? How many are being silenced in that way? So in my view, something is being done, but I believe such kind of conversation is going to make us get the right course. Because remember, in a fabric, different fabrics are put at different areas. The structure that would work for Nairobi is not the structure that would work for Siaya in the rural part of Asembo. So that's the kind of conversation I expect maybe at the end of this conversation we would be able to look into.
And Mildred, with that grim picture that we've just painted here, why is it not a national crisis in the country?
I've no idea why it is not a national crisis. But trust me, where the life of a woman is endangered, it should be a crisis, an international crisis. It's a global crisis, because a woman is everything in a home. One day I had, I visited an elderly man, and when I got there, he told me, there is nobody at home. And I asked him, why do you say that there is nobody at home, but I've found you at home? And he's like, no, the mother is not here, so there's nobody at home, nobody will attend to you. So you can imagine if this person is not there totally, is dead, then the home is empty. Because the men themselves don't regard a home as a home without a woman. So it's just sad that we've got a lot of laws, we have a lot of legislations, but nothing is happening until now, because we still record deaths every day. And as you said, you just have a data for maybe the cities, the big cities, but you don't have the data for the smaller cities. And GBV is not just about death or anything else. It's about many things. Come economically, come workstation where women are working, come social setups where women are supposed to be intermingling with other people. You find that there's a lot of abuse, and there's a lot to be done. It should be a national crisis, if you asked me. Yeah.
And Mheshimiwa, given that you have a platform, Parliament is set to resume on the 11th of this month. Why not use that particular platform to voice that concern, so that this technical committee, as opposed to staying here in Nairobi in a boardroom, why should they not go around the country, collect the views of women across the country? Could you use your platform to at least talk to this particular issue?
Yeah, sure, Abdiaziz. We have used that platform a good number of times, and we have actually, as a woman, the women leadership in Parliament, we actually took off from Parliament as a group. We almost walked to Parliament to go and see the President of the Republic of Kenya. And that is why he actually went ahead and made a presser regarding the femicide that was happening in this country, and that is where he actually allocated 100 million for the same. Now, on the 100 million that was given, we have been able to make steps. We have been speaking to this matter, and I agree with Pauline here that we must take it to the grassroots. We must take it to the ground so that we can be able to listen to the people. We must take it out of the boardroom, because the boardroom does not give us a proper view of what is happening. And that, in that way, we have a program as we speak right now that we are going to 102 constituencies for a starter. 102 constituencies across Kenya, to be able to call these women, to be able to call these men, to be able to call these chiefs, to be able to call these police officers, to be able to call these people who handle the gender-based violence victims in the hospitals, in the police stations, because you find some of these people, even when someone is dead, someone has died, and they're in the morgue. When we want to do the post-mortem, they don't know what to look out for them to determine whether this was a femicide or whatever it is. We need to be able to have this conversation at the grassroots, and we need to be able to talk to the people who are concerned. We need to be able to talk to the police for them to be able to look out on what are the signs and symptoms of femicide coming, or gender-based violence as a whole. So that platform has been of very good use, and we are still using the platform to be able to bring all the stakeholders together so that we can have the people who have interest, the people who have the responsibility going down there, going to the villages that me and Pauline are speaking about, and Mildred here, that we go there and be able to see the situation as it is, and we move out of the boardroom. So that platform has been of help, and we have been able to, for instance, the money that we were given, we have used that platform to get that money. Because you know that money has to go through the budgeting process in the National Assembly. So we have used it effectively to get it as a start. I'm not saying it's enough, but it is somewhere that we are starting from, so that we can be able to have a better engagement. Then we can be able to look at solutions that will last and solutions that are sustainable in this country in ending gender-based violence and ending femicide.
Okay. And Pauline, where is the missing link? Given that you've just given a generational difference, that during your generation this was not happening, now it is happening. What do you think are these contributors that have led us to where we are right now?
A good one, Abdiaziz, but I wanted to do a rejoinder and ask Mheshimiwa these pertinent questions. We do agree quite a lot is being done, and you've gotten a good platform. My worry has always been this. It takes us too long maybe to get to the grassroots. By the time you get to the grassroots, we've had cases and cases. So my take is this. Mildred here works with Women Africa Achievers, and that is a way. She comes to the grassroots to support groups like us using her own transport. Why can't you also involve such kind of group to be able to get you to the grassroots women? Because the grassroots women will tell you what is happening on the ground. I think for me that is a good move, but I think there's more need to rush it, because you'll all agree with me, part of why femicide happens right now is the slow response. The case of this Olympian,
yes,
she reported her life was in danger. But the response was poor until she died. And the most painful part of it is that the children were watching. You recall that they were throwing her, what do you call it, a blanket,
yes,
and the man was taking the blanket and telling the children, if you want to die. I can tell you that we are going to have a generation of children who are so scared, who are depressed, because those children cannot imagine. If she's a lady, she can never imagine getting herself married. So I think that the response towards the approaches we are giving should be handled, as my colleague has just said, it's a crisis, should be handled as fast as possible. Actually, this is the time that we need to ask our president. On femicide, bureaucracies should not even be coming on board. If there is anything we need to get hold of, get to the chief, that should be done. So the missing link is here. Our theory and our practice, at times, we have some slowness here. And maybe she's talking about bureaucracy. Is that what has made us reach where we are? Number two, to it, the missing link is right now our family fabric. Why did I mention during my time? During my time, our parents would sit us down. Me, I remember my mother did not know any other language except using either kiboko or scolding. But then, what has happened? Our parents there, a yes or a no. Are we talking to our children, a yes or a no? Because if you look at the ages that are died, 18 to 35,
yes,
we hear this slogan of Wamekula transport. Is this something that is okay? Is this something we can talk about? We hear it's the era of slaying. Is it something okay? So I think there is still also the little that we can do. And I can tell you, as I've told you, that when you take the simplest symptom, that my head is, I'm feeling baridi, feverish, and then it turns out to be malaria. If it is not managed, it gets into cerebral malaria, and the case continues and continues. Same with this. Femicide or GBV, once handled from the grassroots. I am in the village, and I will tell you that if a meeting is called in the village, and Mheshimiwa will agree with me, women always go and sit on a certain corner. So if I appear and sit where men are, it looks so abnormal, because that's not the way it's supposed to be. Women are supposed to be in a corner, so silent, dominated, and this is why when we still talk about girl child education, people say that we are forgetting about the boy child. No, the boy child is in the picture, but looking at statistics, the girl child still needs to be helped to be able to be economically dependent, because where the issues come from, when we get empowered. Look at I'm sorry to use the Olympian case, because it touched me. She was doing well. The man apparently may not have been doing well economically. And that is not the only case that we know of. Most of the cases, even of gospel singers, they would always tell you that when I started having money, my husband started getting insecure. So it's either separation or worse part of it, femicide. So we have to look at this thing critically. Something got broken at the family fabric, and it went on and went on. The particular norm that we are still talking about, and I would ask Mheshimiwa, we thought that the women affirmative action that gave us the women rep was going to bring the woman to the table. A big no. The woman's voice is still not being heard. So we still need to ask our leaders who are men to be part in leading this. Actually, these GBV issues, if the men would take a front line, then I think the women would be okay. So for me, that is what I would really say was a missing link.
And Mildred, you have interacted with some of the cases. I'm sure women come to you and address some of these concerns, families that have been able to lose their loved ones. So what are some of these lasting effects, aside from the psychological part of it all, given that we've just been given an instance there, what is the lasting effect on that family?
Thank you so much. I think there's a lot of the lasting effects, mostly where the children are left behind. These children are forever going to be motherless. So, and as I said, I first started that in a family where there is no woman, that family is disoriented in a big way. And from our background, from the social background where we've grown from, we find that most of the time the person whom we saw around most of the time were our mothers. So you can imagine if this mother is missing in this link, then there is a gap that is going to be created in the children as they grow up. And that one being said, I just want to come back to what Paulina has said. There's a big gap in the theory and the practical of handling GBV. And this comes in whereby we have so many organizations down there, so many grassroots groups that are trying to manage the situation, but they don't have any know-how. They don't have resources. They don't have support. Nobody speaks on their behalf. Nobody talks about them. And they're just there to ensure that this community, at least there is peace. And if there are children who are left behind, we are able to bring them up. And then today, when somebody hears like there is a certain amount of money that was put aside to help these cases, you wonder, where does this money go to? Because I've been handling so many women issues back in our village and back in our county. I live in Kajiado, so I have a lot of Kajiado cases. I've also worked in Wajir, where there is a lot of disparity when it comes to a woman, whereby you'll just even be taken from the school, go get married to somebody who is even 10 times your age, and nobody speaks, no community speaks. And you find that these people, every time they speak about it, they are against the culture. They are supposed to be excommunicated. And they're just parents who are just okay, they're cool, because this elderly person will bring maybe some form of dowry. That it is kind of a comfort. But again, you ask yourself, what next for this woman? What next for this woman? Because women are crying outside here day and night. I wish our government will be able to work with the small groups we are having in the grassroots. Like on Saturday, I went to support Pauline and her friends in their organization. And like you find that there's a lot of things to be done. When you think like, Kenya always, people say that we've talked about women so much. Trust me, when you get to the grassroots, you'll see that you've not even dropped anything on that ocean. A lot is happening down there. They are so hungry, they don't have anything to feed on. They are at the same time sick because they were abused sexually. They contracted HIV. So they are sick. Every time they have to go for the resources, for the free medicine. And now that we are having the issues with the World Health Organization, we don't know whether the medicine will be coming back. We are not sure of what is going to happen to them next. But we find that there are women who sacrifice their all just to ensure that these women who are really down get at least a meal a day, or sometimes their children are taken to school just to give them hope that tomorrow these children will be able to salvage the situation. But trust me, a child growing under that environment of gender-based violence will not be the same child growing in an environment where the family is happy. These are two people. And these two people are supposed to meet tomorrow and marry. This person is carrying generational burden, a lot of emotional torture, a lot of psychological torture. And this person is coming happily thinking that we are going to make a family. By the end of the day, this person is carrying everything that the baggage he came with from the family, and puts on this person. This person is also affected. And in one way or another, this person will be eliminated. Because this one has been a resilient in the surroundings. So he has all the potentials. He has all the techniques of survival. But this one is an innocent being who doesn't know how to survive. So this person will be eliminated. So this thing, because it starts in the family, There's a lot we have to do in the family, back at home. We have to bring back family unity. And I'm so happy with the Nyumba Kumi initiative, whereby you have to check on your neighbor. Your neighbor is doing what? Your neighbor came back home. Your neighbor is what and what? That one was good. But as things go, as the crime rate increases, we find that even Nyumba Kumi is not working. Because when somebody knocks at the gate, you don't know whether it's your neighbor or it's a robber. So when you open it, within no time, somebody has attacked you. So it is not effective yet. We need these policies. We have a lot of good policies. The mothermost of it is the Constitution, our 2010 Constitution. It is so good in human rights. I wish these things can be implemented and taken back to the community. We need the community back.
And Mheshimiwa, that's a challenge to you. Given that you'll be visiting at least 102 constituencies, will you be working with such organizations who are down there in the grassroots, given that they know that particular area? And given there's another issue that has just cropped up from this particular topic we're talking about, where is the education in all this? Given that this is the 21st century, we do have people who have gone to school, yet this issues mostly, given that we do not know the statistics down there in the villages, in the cities, major cities like Nairobi, Nakuru, Kiambu, these are people who have gone to school, learned, but the cases are still high in that particular region. So is education missing?
Thank you very much. I agree with my panelists on most of the things that we have spoken about, because really we need to work together, and like you have proposed. In fact, before you said it, I was actually about to invite them to be able to come, especially to my constituency where I will be, because this is what I meant when we said we will be bringing together all the stakeholders. So we need to be able to work together, use the resources that we have, so that can be able to address the real issue back at home. Of course, we have spoken about the effectiveness of probably the woman reps in the National Assembly. And I must say that, of course, we must work together with the men, and we must be able to bring all of them. But the woman rep position has given the women an opportunity to say the things that would never be said by men. And I can tell you this today, Abdiaziz, that there are things, even in the National Assembly, if a woman does not speak to them, the men will not speak to them. That is a very important part and point. Even in the villages, there are things men will speak to, but there are things that they will never speak to. For instance, the issues of marriages, the issues of relationships in the families, no man will be able to speak to it, because for them, when we say, okay, you need to probably have one wife and be able to take care of them, the men measure their strength by how many women they have. They cannot speak to that matter. These are matters that us, the woman reps who are in the National Assembly, and other women leaders in their own rights, like Mildred and Pauline, are able to speak to, because they are women and because they have worn that shoe and they know where it pinches most. So it has given a platform for us to be able to speak to these matters generally. Now, on the issue of, if you ask me, the issue of femicide is actually an issue of morals to a greater extent. And we all know that we cannot entirely police morals. And I agree with Mildred and Pauline in the sense that it has to start from the family unit. It has to start from home, so that we can be able to have kids that we're raising, kids that are able to tell what is okay and what is not okay. And we are able then to be able to bring up good adults that can be able to come up with families and be able to take care of their children in a good way. We have spoken about education. You know, most of the time when you're out here, education has replaced the good morals that Pauline is actually speaking to. That in the past, where I also lived, I'm not very young, someone can think that I am young, but I'm not. I lived in a situation where the parent was the parent. Whatever they say is right. And of course, there's not a parent that tells you the wrong thing anyway. And there were cultural activities that you would not cross. Like really, if this is a no, it is a proper no. And we would grow up wanting to be in families because we saw how our parents lived. We saw how our mothers behaved and how our fathers behaved. Now, that part, Abdiaziz, because you have spoken about education, has sort of been replaced by education. So when you tell them about those very good things that we used to practice in the past, they tell you, when mzai, umepitwa na wakati. These are Gen Z and generational things that are new, you know, like you are outdated. Let me tell you this, until we fix that part, like Pauline and Mildred are saying, we are not getting it right, because we must be able to bring up people, a generation that appreciates human life, that appreciates
a marriage and a partner that looks at the wife and looks at her as a helper and as a good thing. A wife that looks at a man and looks at the man as the head of the house and as a good thing. We cannot be bringing up generations that are jealous, that because Pauline got a salary of 500,000 and I have a salary of 200,000, we start fighting here and we get going like we kill them or we chase them because they're doing better. No, it should be a family where whatever you earn or whatever I earn is for the good of our family. And it should be able to bring us happiness as opposed to killing the other one. And this is a matter that we must be able to speak out. And we must be able to speak to it. We must be able to tell these young people, we must be able to tell the people who are in marriage already that we must endeavor to live. We must endeavor to have an accommodative environment for our children. Even if it is not for us, because you've heard what Mildred says. The kids that are brought up with fighting in the house will take fighting as a normal thing. The kids that are brought up with threats of nitakudunga kisu will actually be playing, and if you pay attention to the kids that are playing outside, the words that they speak are nothing from outside. They're everything from inside. So when you hear a kid saying a very interesting word, you must be able to tell where it's coming from. And the family unit must bring back its glory, must be able to put back the fabric that we're talking about, the very good fabric, so that we can be able to have a better country and a better people. So education is a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It is a very good thing, and actually we are actually urging everyone to be educated. But we must not have education replacing some of these practices that we must have as human beings, the humanity that we must have as human beings. We must use education to advance this humanity that we must have and the progression that we must have as human beings, not replace it with the good practices that we used to have even before education.
Okay. And Pauline, the unfortunate bit is that when these cases happen, many a times we see people hiding under the veil of cultural norms. How do we negate that particular situation, or what should be done? Is it awareness that is missing, public participation? What is the missing link there? Because you can expect everyday people to hide behind cultural norms.
That's indeed a good one, because where I come from, that's very key. In fact, in a term in our language, I'll translate it. When it happens, they say the snake has gotten inside the gourd of milk. So what happens is that they say, if you break this glass, for instance, you're going to kill the snake, but your milk will be poured. So it is better to cover it so that you still retain your milk. It's translated. So men and girls grow up knowing that if anything happens, especially surrounding gender-based violence, issues of sexual abuse, you hide it under that. But I will tell you this, and I'm happy this conversation is taking place at such kind of a time. Unfortunately, when data is showing us the voice of men is actually what will stop this. Because when we look at culture, even years back, if you read, men took a leading role in almost everything. Biblically, and I believe Quran too, talks about the man taking a lead. So what happens is that when men have receded their position and taken a backstage, the women have come in front with no support from the men, so it becomes a competition, as Moshimo is saying. And this is the competition that I learned in a mixed school. And I will tell you, it was a very healthy competition, because he would beat you in mathematics, you beat him in English, and it was very healthy. There was nothing like even fighting. But right now, a woman earning 500,000 with a man earning 200,000, the society will tell the man, if she replies, it's because she's earning that money. If you have any issues of conflict in a marriage, it's because of that money. So for me, where this begs is that, like Mahesh have some fans, when they get to our community, like when she'll come to my place, I will have the men sit around. They will tell you what are their issues. Because the voice of man, and I'll give you this example relating it to maternal mortality. Sometimes back in health, we were wondering why clinic attendance of women was going down, but when men were brought on board, it was called BOMA, Baba Ongoza Mama Fuate. So what happened is that the men would come, then because they're men, they're given past preference. So the men who carry their wives to the clinic would get an opportunity for their women to be seen first. In that particular moment, we saw skyrocketing in terms of attendance. So what happens is that we want the voice of men on this GBV. I believe in the next panelist, let's have some of these few men talk when we are also talking here, so that we're also able to get the nitty-gritties of what would make a man that jealous to the extent of killing a partner that he loved. He told him once or twice he loved. Even as I said this, another thing is the integration part of it. Abdiaziz, HIV/AIDS taught us a lesson. I use these examples. When HIV and AIDS came in the 90s,
it was a solo-pronged approach. The Ministry of Health was handling it. Nothing worked. But when it started being integrated in the Ministry of Education, and everybody took it up, we could see the banks even in the pay slips.
Yes.
They would write AIDS is killing, and whatever. People came up, and all of a sudden we all got alert. And even back in the villages, everybody said, you know, this thing is killing. But before then, in my village, what were they saying? It is a curse. So people are just dying. So I believe femicide should now not be in the cocoon of any ministry. It should be out there. The media is shouting, the men are shouting, the women are shouting, everyone is shouting about it. And then you'll come to realize that the community awareness is going to come up. Last but not least, when you talk about community engagement, I'll tell you what happens in this country at times. That is amazing to me. I'm happy that I went and my organization is in the village. Very good initiatives like what Mahesh is coming with. But you know the people who come? Mildred, Pauline, and Nancy. And so what we are saying is English. We go there, speak to. So those old women are looking at us. They're looking at our cutex. They're looking at our hair. And by the time we finish, we think we got a multitude. We didn't get. So this time round, we must get it right. Get to Nandi and speak Nandi. Look at that Nandi leader, who is the influencer in Nandi as a leader. That person is going to take that message home. Come to my place. Look at that old village elder. Talk to him in Kijaluo and tell him that he will pick it up and he will feel respected. And most of them are men. So you will realize that what we'll be doing is that we are involving the men to handle women issues. Then we will not be having where it's only women who talk about their women issues. When we started Motisha Dada, they were telling me, it's about women. I said, no, Motisha Dada is a sister. Abdiaziz, you have a sister, you have a mother, you have a wife, so you are motivating this particular person who is the other gender. So I believe we are on the right track, but we are still not gotten the soft spot that we need to have at the grassroots.
And Mildred, as we're coming an end to this particular program, there are other underlying issues. Aside from GBV and femicide cases, you clearly stated that you have been in Kajiado, in Wajir. There is an issue of female genital mutilation, early marriages. These are other underlying issues under this particular femicide and GBV cases that were recorded in the country. So what is your view? And in this particular, even as the task force is sitting to consider some of the views being collected from stakeholders, members of the public, should they be addressing this particular issue as well?
I believe they should be addressing those kind of issues because if you asked me, early marriage is kind of abuse to a woman, and genital mutilation is kind of abuse to a woman, because I wouldn't say like God was not right to create me as I am, and I am not supposed to be judged by my biological makeup. The way I am, it's just the way I was created. So when you think like you're supposed to remove something to make me whole, that is not acceptable. And that is an abuse to a woman. And again, also, because like I'm working with regions where I'm experiencing a lot of early marriages. I'm working with Kajiado and I'm working with Wajir, and trust me, having lived in those places, I'll tell you point blank that these are kind of gender-based violence. Because we rescue girls day and night. Somebody would call you even in the middle of the night. Somebody is supposed to be betrothed tomorrow. If you don't act now, that girl will not be there. So you have to go and get this girl. After getting this girl, you wonder, where do I take this girl? I have to look for a rescue home. A rescue home that I don't support because I don't have those financial muscles to support these homes. But every time and then, when I rescue a girl, I have to look for a home within these counties so that they can go and be there. And the rescue homes have also schools. That is the better part of it. The girl is able to continue with education. And if a girl had been taken before and they express that they don't want that marriage, we also plan to rescue them with their children. So you can imagine you've taken a young lady, a young mother with her 2 or 3 children to a rescue home. You've added mouths to feed, but who is Mildred? I've got 0 resources. The government doesn't know me. I don't exist anywhere. But even the members of parliaments or women representatives in that county, they don't know what is happening. But you as a social worker, you know what is happening in the grassroots. And those issues, before you raise them out, somebody will ask you like, oh, in our communities we live like this and this and this and this, and you wonder which kind of community is depriving a young woman his right to education, her right to life, her right to even be free to do whatever they want, and marrying the person they want to choose, not marrying anybody who comes today and said like, this woman is the best woman for me and I have to take her. Whether she likes it, she doesn't like it, she has to go with me. So you find that we have a lot of issues that, to me, if you asked me about FGM and early marriages, these are a form of gender-based violence. Just the same way somebody would say that she dressed badly, that's why she was raped. And I would say point blank, before the dresses came, we were not wearing anything, and nobody was even raping us. People were walking without clothes. Nobody was raping each other. So why is it that today you tell me I was dressed badly? It is not about my dressing. It is about your issue. What are you handling, or what are you dealing with? So I really request that this one would go to the stakeholders, those people who hold resources, those people who have power, those people who know who and whom, to come together. Like Women Achievers Africa is just an umbrella that carries small organizations. Like now our organization, there's another one somewhere, there's another one in Wajir. So if you come to Mildred, I'll tell you, I have somebody in Samburu that is dealing with GBV. And actually there's a word that she won because of GBV, the rescue home she's running. Yes. And these are things that maybe the government doesn't know even there's a rescue home in Samburu. So if they come to the grassroots and find that these people who are working, how are they working? How can we support them? Imagine they can rescue so many people. But because they're not supported, it becomes a problem. And I love what UN does. UN does a lot of training for the police officers to handle the cases for GBV. Because GBV is not something that we just talk about it and we leave it at that. There we have even victims, the survivors, who don't even make it after being raped or being abused. Because what would the community say? Will say, oh, she had eaten the fare of that guy, she deserved to die. Oh, she was dressed like that, she deserved to die. Oh, she wanted the wealth of that man, she deserved to die. So that woman will not even see the light. Tomorrow she will hear like there's a suicide somewhere. They have died. So we need to do something. A lot has to be done in this nation. We need to rescue a lot of people.
Now let me at least accord you 30 seconds each so that we can wind up this particular topic. Let me start with you, Mheshimiwa. Your final thought, especially on key recommendations that you like to front when it comes to addressing these particular concerns.
Thank you very much. One, I would want to talk to the issue of data. As a country, we must be able to collect data. We must be proactive and make it deliberate to collect the data so that we know in every sublocation in this country what happened and what was the cause of it. Because without data, we might not be able to address so many things, but with data, we will be able to address the issues and even attract funding. Number two, I want to take this opportunity to invite the men to be able to take part in this matter. I remember when we went to a certain county in this country that practices FGM, large scale. The men, when you speak about the FGM, that we should stop it, the men left the meeting, literally left the meeting. So I agree with Pauline that if we have men championing and taking a lead on this, we will definitely have a closure to the same. Lastly, we must be able to work on our morals. We must be able to work on ourselves. We must be able to work on our issues, work on our anger, work on accepting defeat, work on accepting rejection. If you're rejected, get going, find another one. They will say yes, definitely. If it is not working, walk away from it. Let us end the bitterness, let us stop the hatred, and let us embrace love so we can be able to have a society that appreciates human life and endeavors to have a flourishing environment for everyone to live in, the girl and the boy all the same.
Okay, Pauline?
Let's be our brother's keeper. Let's all be on the watch out. It's a concern to everyone, whether a man or a woman, a girl or a boy. So let's watch on those signs. If there are any signs of danger, kindly let's also notify. Let's also go for counseling. When you feel you're being jilted or you feel you can't handle that emotion, that's why we have professional counselors outside. I also want to talk to the leadership. Let's have more budget allocation on GBV as compared to other budget allocation, because this is a crisis, and so if we integrate it, then we'll be able to have our community structures working out. So for me, we are all part and parcel of this journey of stopping femicide and stopping gender-based violence, and I believe it's possible it can be done.
Okay, thank you. Mildred?
Thank you so much, and I'm so much pleased that we're discussing this today. And I'm so much pleased that amongst us we have the Member of Parliament, somebody who can be able to voice our concerns and also look for people in the grassroots and help them. I wouldn't say that there should be a lot of allocation compared to other things, but I would want to say like the allocation there should be like people should be accountable. If we gave out 100 million, what did it do? Did it get to the grassroots where these people are suffering? So that one should be a major concern before even adding the amount. People should be accountable of the amount they're given. And then now, my word to everyone outside there, I want to say, echo your voice. And in voice, when I talk about voice, I spell each and every letter with its own meaning. Like visibility. As a woman, you must be visible. Don't hide yourself like every time you don't want to be seen, or somebody tells you can't work with somebody. No, be visible. Once somebody tells you like you can't do this, you can't go here, trust me, that is one concern that you should be addressing. That is a looming problem. Then you come to the ownership. As a woman, ensure you own something. And if a man owns something, ask the man, now that we are in a relationship, we are married, can't you include my name in this thing? And as a woman, if you are financially stable, also include your man in everything you are doing. That one makes you have power in a way, but also makes the man have authority. Because authority is for the man. And once you start doing things like you are hiding and seek, by the end of the day, you find that the man bought properties and you're left alone. There's nothing under your name. Or you bought properties and the man decided like, now this one has to go because he has all these things. Then we come to identity. You have to know yourself. Know your strength and know your weaknesses. Don't overdo things. If you know your strength, then it means that nobody can push you to the extreme limit. You just say no when it is time to say no. Then we have community. Belong somewhere as a woman. Like now I've come here, somebody has known me, I have known you. Tomorrow when I'm facing something, I will call you and I said, oh, Jackie from KCB, KBC, can you come and help me here? There's something happening to me. A woman has to belong somewhere. Even if it's a rural community where you just come together and you gossip your own stuff, belong somewhere. It is important for a woman. Then emotional intelligence. Know what is happening around you. If the atmosphere changes, you should be able to detect it as a woman. Know something has changed and take action as soon as possible. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That is Mildred Opondo, the Global Head of Women Achievers Africa. Next to her is Pauline Oguko, the Director of Motisha Dada. And then finally, Mheshimiwa Cynthia Muge, an MP from Nandi County. Thank you, ladies, for making time for us. And of course, this is the concern. And of course, all eyes will be now on that particular 42-member task force who are expected to investigate this issue and, of course, recommend solutions aside from budgetary allocation to that particular sector. What are some of the underlying issues that are leading to many women in this particular country lose their lives? That marks the end of our first conversation. In the second hour, it is all about the status of devolution. And any moment from now, in the second hour, we'll be taking you live to the Delta House, where the Council of Governors are expected to address us in terms of where the devolution conference of 2025 will be held. That is our conversation that is coming up next, so don't go too far.
Simfungulie huyu.
Ati?
Nimesema sifunguliwe huyu. Sasa basi nakupa ruksa. Nenda ukaishi huko.
Toroka. Rudi mafichoni Kalume utakuja shikwa.
Wewe usinikumbushe Sudi.
Nini mpenzi?
Wewe ukitaka kujua mtu mzima na meno 32 nitetee na mpenzi.
Kini? Hakuna cha lakini. Nilikuwepo sikuambiwa.
Habarisha wanakisiwa wote kwamba yeyote atakayeniletea taarifa za aliko Kalume nitampatia donge nono.
Hebu toka nje. Toa ama nikumalize. Simama hapo. Wewe.
Nataka uambie hawa watu lile jambo ulikuja kusema hapa jana usiku.
I never heard a music so sweet. I repeat.
Wagwan, me brethren, big things are going. Remember, each and every Monday we have to shell down the place with nothing but the best of smooth reggae vibes in your favorite station. You know these things, man.
Alafu kila Tuesday, kata simu tupo side, giving you Kenyan music from the 254.
And of course, you can spice up your Wednesday by enjoying blazing hot hip-hop and R&B jams.
We don't got no label. She say she want bottles.
Vibes and vibes as we go all across Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, all the way to Tanzania to give you nothing but the best. on Africans Day. Make sure you make a date with us each and every single Friday. With me, DJ_Lisa Diva.
DJ Cold.
And me, Wanjiko. This is Club One Extra.
Wellness is important in our daily lives, so that instead of just surviving, we should be thriving.
Ways to prevent a stroke or heart attack is for you to know what conditions you have by regular checkup. People don't know they have hypertension. They don't know they have diabetes.
I was pre-diabetic. I was afraid of getting lifestyle diseases because I come from a family that has lifestyle diseases.
How do you know if your cough is due to a serious condition? We'll have some answers. Stay well
and strive to make every day a healthy day.
Test mic 1.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Our focus in the second hour is the status of a devolution. Any moment from now, we'll be knowing which county will be hosting this year's devolution conference. A press briefing will be held at Delta Corner, where the Council of Governors reside, and we'll be listening to that particular bit. But on the other side, I also know we do have our colleague that is weekly for Ketch, who will be having a sit down with none other than Dr. Wilbur Otichilo, who is the governor of Vihiga County, to just get a feel of what is happening at the grassroots level in the devolved units. And in the studio, we'll be having the Intergovernmental Relation Technical Committee. We do have the chair as well as the national coordinator here with us in studio just to tell us about the transfer of function, given that the president assured that the remaining functions that are with the national government that ought to be with the devolved units will be transferred amicably, so that the devolved units, of course, can oversee those particular functions. Also keeping an eye on other events that are making headlines at this hour, and any moment from now we'll be taking you there live. But let me get to introduce my guests for the second hour. We do have CPA Kithenji Kiragu, who is the chairman of the technical committee of that IGTRC. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hashim.
Thank you. And of course, to his left is none other than Evans Kibet Boss, the national convener of the Kenya Devolution Civil Society Organization Working Group. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hashim.
Okay. And of course, we'll be heading there any moment from now, so you need to stay tuned with us. We'll be taking you live to the Vihiga County so that you can get to listen from the governor himself. And of course, we're keeping an eye on Delta Corner, where the Council of Governors are set to announce that particular conference where it will be held for the year 2025. Now, let me start with you, Chair. Given that the IGTRC has been very critical in terms of overseeing the working relations between the national and the county governments, before we even talk about the transfer of function, where would you place the relationship between the national and the county governments as of now?
I would say, first of all, at the general political level and policy level, it is actually quite cordial. It is quite good. I think where we haven't got it is at the working level, and therefore even the differences which you hear at another level in terms of quarrels about one level of government doing functions of another level of government, is because we have not had enough of what the Constitution required, which is consultation, cooperation and coordination between the two levels of government. So I would say, I think we are in a good place. The challenge now is at the technical level, the officers in the technical level, the officers in ministries and departments and the county governments need to know how to work better together to deliver to the people of Kenya.
Evans, your view, has politics at least been one of the major challenges in ensuring that the working relations between the national and the county governments is where it is now?
Yeah, Hashim, I think as we speak today, devolution is working and it must work. For us in the civil society, we say devolution is a lifeline for citizens, so it must work. In terms of relationship, Chair has clearly stated it. Let it not be forgotten that devolution is not just a system of governance. It is a value and a principle of governance captured under Article 10. So there are no two ways about it. These two levels of government must work together for the interest of citizens. But as we speak now, of course, there are few operational issues that sometimes bring tension, which we shall delve into, including how we share revenue, including what are the boundaries in terms of functional boundaries, who is supposed to do what, who is responsible for what, and is he well supported to do that?
And now coming back to you, Chair, given that we're still talking about transfer of function from the national government to the county government, the President has clearly declared himself on that particular issue that the remaining functions within the national government will be getting back to the devolved units. What is hampering that transfer?
First of all, let me say that in accordance with the direction given by His Excellency the President, and after a very inclusive, participatory, all-government process involving county governments and state departments and state government agencies, involving offices of the National Treasury, Office of the President, Office of the Attorney General, involving Kenya Law Reform Commission, involving Kenyan constitutional experts. We have completely now identified what each of the two levels should do. Let me say at 99% we have. And what also we have been able to do is in December, I gazetted on behalf of IGRTC the clear demarcation of functions between the two levels of government. And therefore, at law, we have done beyond 95% in terms of transferring the functions to the county governments. What has not happened, but it was not expected it would happen overnight, is transferring the resources which need to go along with the transfer of resources, which is what the Constitution demands. And that is our current task, current challenge, not just for IGRTC, but for getting the entire government, all parts of government, both county governments and national government in terms of ministries, departments, and agencies, institutions such as the National Treasury, and to a large extent also Parliament, will all need to work in concert to actually deliver on the transfer of resources which need to follow the transfer of functions.
And maybe before I go to Evans, Chair, what are these sectors that we are still anticipating to go? Is it in the health, the education? Which sectors are we waiting to see if the counties will receive, the ones that are remaining? Which are these sectors, if you know?
Oh, it is everywhere here. There are many areas, not just, of course, the aspects of education, the aspects of health, the aspects of water, the aspects of agriculture, the aspects of, let me say, literally, in all the devolved functions, there are elements in which there was an absence of clarity, which is why we are doing unbundling and delineation. There is also, of course, the case that one level of government is doing something which belongs to the other.
Yes.
So there are elements of that, and that's really what we have to handle now.
And we'll be coming to that, given that one of those issues was the bursaries. Evans, before I give you an opportunity, let's get to hear from the devolved unit itself. Joining us is Wycliffe Okech, who is currently having a sit-down with Dr. Wilbur Otichilo, who is the governor of Vihiga County. Wycliffe, good morning, and if you can hear me, let's get to hear from the governor in terms of the overlapping mandate between the national and the county governments. Where are we in terms of devolution?
so much, Abdiaziz, back from Nairobi. This morning we are coming to you live from Vihiga County, and like you've said it, we are, with me here is the governor of Vihiga County, that is Wilbur Otichilo. As we talk about this whole spectrum of devolution in terms of functions, there has been a contention whether regarding functions that are yet to be devolved, some of the county bosses claim that there is some sort of a disconnect or the competition in terms of devolution, devolved functions at the county level and at the national level. And just to rope in the governor right now. Governor, first of all, good morning, and welcome to KBC Channel 1. I appreciate very much your time for making time for this particular discussion. Even as you say hello to our viewers this morning, from where you sit, in the spirit of devolution, devolution was meant to decentralize service delivery, and from where you sit, being a second-time governor, do you feel that service delivery is fully centralized, as you say hello to our viewers this morning?
Thank you for this opportunity to be able to discuss issues to do with the devolution and how it's being implemented in the 47 counties. I would like to say yes, devolution is working in the 47 counties, and devolution has an opportunity to change the lives of people in our 47 counties. However, we still have a lot of challenges. For the schedule of the Constitution clearly defines the roles of the national government and county government. And the Article 6 of the Constitution clearly defines that we have two distinct governments in Kenya, the national government and the county government. However, although they are distinct, they are interdependent. And therefore, there are many functions that are cross-cutting, but they are distinct. So this is one area that people must know, that county governments are distinct, but they are interdependent with the national government. And therefore, there are a number of functions that have been given to the national government and to the county government. And this is covered in fourth schedule of the Constitution. Generally, if I don't want to go into the details, generally the national government is supposed to undertake certain functions that are national in nature, like foreign affairs issues. That is the docket of the national government. The issue of boundaries, national boundaries, is an issue of the national government. The issue of security is an issue of national government. And then other sectors, generally the national government is supposed to set the policies. The policies, be it the agricultural sector, infrastructure sector, health sector, they're supposed to put policy frameworks, and if possible, legal frameworks that cover at the national level. But when it comes to implementation, most of the functions are devolved. And probably let's go probably sector by sector. And let me start with health.
Being one of the most critical ones.
Yes, the most critical and the one that has a lot of controversy and issues. Health is a devolved function. The national government is only supposed to provide the policy and legal framework. And I want to say that yes, to a larger extent, is health functions are devolved. But the biggest challenge we have, the functions have been devolved, but the resources have not been devolved. And you remember when we started, when devolution started in 2013, 2014, it had been envisaged in the Constitution that the devolution's function will be devolved slowly, and that's why we had that transition authority.
Yes.
Functions was to be devolved slowly as the counties became capable. But health is one of the functions that you remember those earlier days, where there was a controversy, and health was therefore devolved. So in health, I would say it's a devolved function, but the biggest problem we have, the functions have been devolved, but the resources are still at the national level. And this is a challenge we have, and that's why we have a lot of problems in the health sector.
Health being devolved, Kenyans would be wondering to what extent, because as we speak today, we can see there is some sort of collaboration between the national government and the county governments in the form of the community health promoters.
Yes.
So to what extent is health devolved, so that our viewers can know the distinctive role of the county government and the national government in this spectrum?
You see, health is devolved in the sense that all the health facilities, from dispensaries, health centers, health facilities at the level 3, level 4, and even level 5. They are all devolved, except hospitals that are at level 6, that are national hospitals, like Kenyatta, a national hospital. We have like the Moi Referral Hospital, and the Madare National Mental Health Hospital. So there are hospitals that are managed at the national level. But all other hospitals are managed at the county level. What is lacking is that the resources to manage these health facilities are the ones that are not devolved. And then in the process, health is a very cross-cutting sector. You find that a number of functions that, for example, would have been devolved are still being held at the national government. And that's one of the challenges. And through the Intergovernmental Technical Committee, we have been discussing for a long time to ensure that these functions are devolved. But they must be devolved with the resources. That's why it is.
When you talk about functions being devolved but resources are not, what do you mean by this? Because through the equitable share, that's the way through which resources are devolved to the counties. Is health not catered for in that particular?
Yes, health is catered for, but the resources that are allocated through that process is not commensurate to the functions. So you have that, like we are supposed to do 100% of the functions, but we get about probably 50% of the resources. Then we also have, health also has a lot of functions or programs that are funded internationally.
Sure.
And therefore those functions, you find that although they, like for example, HIV/AIDS program, malaria program, TB program, they are programs that are funded internationally, but through the national government. So you find programs like those ones. The government, the national government, is supposed to be a facilitator in the whole process. But we find that those programs are basically managed and controlled at the national level. And we only get just directives of what to do. In fact, I can tell you, if there is any department we get circulars and letters, it's in the Ministry of Health. Every day I receive a letter. Oh, this is going to happen. Can you do this? Can you do this? So we, like, apart from, even now, I'll also go to agriculture. So you find that agriculture, the way the counties are now working is like, we have the big brother, the national government, the Ministry of Health. They have the resources, both from donor funded and from the national. So so most of the time they are directing us, county, can you do this? Can you do this? So we have become like, we don't own, we don't have a full control over those programs.
So you don't have the autonomy?
Yeah, we don't have the autonomy. And you can only have the autonomy if we have the resources that are devoted to you.
And this, staying with those two critical sectors, the health and agriculture, do you believe that this boils down to the aspect of political willingness? Is there political will for the implementation, or rather to facilitate the implementation of devolution?
I would say the political will seems to be there, or is there, but the action, because we have gone to many meetings, the summit, that's where the national government and the county governments meet, the president being the chair. And since, even the current government came in place, the president declared that all the functions that belong to the county will be devolved.
Sure.
Remember when we had the devolution conference in Eldoret?
Sure, yes.
He clearly stated that in 6 months, all the devolved functions from 2022, today we are in 2024. 2025, sorry. The functions were never devolved. We have had many other summits, and the last summit we had it last month. And that's where again it was said now the function will be devolved. And I'm happy a gazette notice was issued which devolved most of those functions. But the resources are still held by the national departments or ministries. So yes, we have been given, I have the report, the gazette notice here, I can show it to you. We have now the function devolved, but no resources have been devolved. We've seen they are doing the supplementary budget. We've checked in it. There are no funds for the devolved function that have been clearly stated in the gazette notice. So the problem here is that, yes, now we have the functions devolved, although we have a few areas where we still believe they have not been covered.
Yes.
But the issue here is, are the resources, the financial resources, going to follow the devolved function? For example, like in agriculture, agriculture is fully devolved. And the Minister of Agriculture is supposed only to give policy directions and so on. Initial issues to do with agricultural inputs, fertilizer, seed, quality seed and so on, was done and procured at the county level. But today, fertilizer is procured at a national level. And we have no control over it. And even when it comes, it goes through the NCBB and then comes to us. And even now the distribution is done through a national coordination program. So you find that, yes, we are in charge of agriculture. But when it comes to real agricultural inputs, we are not in control.
So what aspect?
There are also, programs in agriculture that are supposed to be devolved, but you find that the national government comes to undertake those programs into our county.
A case in point?
Yeah. For example, we have programs like we had the NARIC, we had the NAV CDP. They are supposed to be devolved programs. We're supposed to control, although they are donor funded, but they should be controlled from here. But the truth is that the programs are controlled from the headquarters or from the Ministry of Agriculture. Yes, we have the staff on the ground, but some of them now don't even answer to us. They answer to the Ministry of Agriculture officials in Nairobi. In fact, I've had a lot of problems, even where I have wanted to change some of officers who are there, but the ministry says no, you can't change.
So are counties being sabotaged in terms of implementing devolution?
No, I won't say it's sabotage. But I think it's just, competition. The national government, the people in the national government, the departments, they still want to have a control over this program. They have not, they know the projects have been, the programs have been devolved, but it's that feeling that they want to control. So if the issue of control is also, we could interpret it in another way as sabotage, then I would say yes. Yeah.
There is another devolution conference later this year that is in Homa Bay.
Yes.
And I know this is going to form the basis, rather, the topical discussions right there.
Yes.
From where you sit being the governor of Vihiga, what is the solution to this impasse?
The solution, I think we have discussed in the last summit, I think we discussed very well, and we agreed on how to relate together. And we agreed that first and foremost, the Council of Governors must have a legal recognition. Because right now the Council of Governors the organization is not legally enshrined in our legal framework. So we want that to be done. The Intergovernmental Technical Committee, we also need it to be given more powers and more mandate to be able to coordinate and ensure that any cross-cutting challenges or any cross-cutting activities are well managed both by the county and the national government. Right. So in the conference that we will have in Homa Bay, the key issue is going to be the devolution, the devolved function. We must, first of all, have resources for that, because those devolved functions have been costed. And based on the Intergovernmental Technical Relations Committee, the functions that are supposed to come to us, and most of them now have been covered in this gazette, we need about 300 billion that should be devolved.
Right.
But that has not happened. So we would be insisting that in the next budget, 2025, 2026, that amount must be included. And even in this discussion we have had,
yes,
at IBEC, yes, at the Deputy President's office, we were there last week. We raised the issue that in our shareable portion for 2025-2026, they have given us 407 billion. But we are saying these functions now have been devolved. They have been devolved, and therefore, from next financial year, we expect that we'll take over.
Yes.
So we need our shareable revenue for 2025, 2026 to take consideration of that, which they have not.
All right.
Yeah, and that's why we had to form a committee to discuss.
Okay.
Because again, we are going to find ourselves in a very awkward situation.
All right.
We will have the functions devolved with no resources. And,
hold that thought just right there. We're there at the guest in the studio back in Nairobi that was also supposed to be contributing to this particular discussion. And Abdiaziz, if you can hear me from your end, I know you have a very able panelist there also to chip in with their opinions regarding this particular topic, even as we also continue to discuss the same from this end with Governor Otichilo, that's the governor of Vihiga County. Hashim, if you can hear me, it's your time.
So much. That is our very own Wycliffe Okech, just having a conversation. Of course, just roping in what the conversation we're having here in the studio in terms of status of devolution. You've just heard from one of the county managers of Vihiga County, Dr. Wilbur Otichilo, clearly talking about the issues that have been raised here by the Chair Evans in terms of the finances that are yet to be devolved. He's quoting a figure of 300 billion that ought to be devolved, given that some of the functions that were gazetted in December last year. Let me come to you, Evans, given that before we went there, I did not give you an opportunity. The governor is raising pertinent issues. He's clearly stating that in the financial year of 25-26, which they even discussed in the IBEC meeting there at Karen, clearly stating that if those functions are already devolved. Why not attach it to the 407 billion shillings that is going to the counties this year?
Thank you, Hashim. I think let's also remember that when we talk about these functions in our constitution, and a number of them are human rights, identified as human rights. So this is a matter of urgency. When you talk about citizens expecting access to healthcare, affordable, quality, adequate health services, access to clean, safe, and adequate water, these are guaranteed in our constitution as human rights. So the urgency, we as civil society, we wish to see the responsible entities move with speed to ensure that county governments operate optimally. This is a conversation that we ought to have been completed as soon as yesterday. Remember, we are talking about over 15 years of implementation of devolution. If devolution started being implemented in 2013, after the elections, we are almost hitting 15 years, over and above the 3 years of just transition since the promulgation of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. So talking about 2025-2026, I know the financial year has really progressed because the budget policy statement is out, and the figure the governor is citing is actually in the budget policy statement. So when you ask the question about political goodwill, as civil society we are concerned because it started with, let me say, the main declaration was during the devolution conference in the year 2023, August 2023, when the president said that this ought to be done within the transfer of function and resources ought to be completed in 60 days. That was in August 2023. In November, I think, and I must appreciate Chair and the IGRTC team, his team, they have worked very hard to try and unbundle this function. As he mentioned, they have almost over 90% complete to unbundle and try to cause this function to form basis for transfer of this function and the resources. So I think where the rubber will meet the road is when actually we start the financial year and we see functions transferred. We would want to see the attendant resources accompanied, and not just the resources, including the capacities, the requisite capacity needed to deliver this function. Remember, we are talking about transfer of functions that counties maybe did not have systems to deliver it. I would wish to hear Chair speak about what is the mechanisms that they are put in place to ensure that counties have adequate capacities to deliver this function. So what the governor is saying is actually true. The expectation for citizens is very high on county governments to deliver these services in terms of, this is what, if you look at the way we have been sharing, and maybe this is a gap I would wish us to discuss. It appears like our division of revenue between national and county government has been more of historical based costing. Because if you look even at the functions that counties are currently implementing, you realize there is a very huge deficit in terms of financing. Take an example of even healthcare, which the governor has really delved into. Hashim, did you know that there was an attempt to do that scientific costing by TA and CRA, that is Transition Authority and Commission on Revenue Allocation, that just taking an example of a dispensary, how much does it take to run a dispensary? You realize, you will be surprised that we need not less than 10 million to just in terms of human resource to run a dispensary. If you look at how many dispensaries are there in counties and just do a quick arithmetic, layman, you realize that the allocation to healthcare in counties is a drop in the ocean. And that's why we continue to struggle with human resource shortage, we continue to struggle with shortage of drugs and commodities. The county where I come from, Baringo County, did a scientific costing of what they need to deliver commodities, drugs and medical drugs and commodities. And they found out about 750 million is needed annually as per 2024. Yet the budget allocation has hardly gone over 200, so a third. So every year we were planning to fail because we allocate resources which are not adequate, and then we just meet the problem of inadequate drugs, shortage of drugs, and poor service delivery. So I think for us as the civil society, this is a conversation that needs to move with speed. I know IGRTC has talked about the Gazette notices, but I know there will be a legislative framework needed to ensure that these resources accompany the function and the capacities. We need to see actors actually moving with speed to ensure that counties operate optimally.
And Chair, the main issue that the county manager there, that is the governor of Vihiga County, that is Wilbur Tichilo, is raising, that when will we see the state departments, which are the parent ministries, such as the Ministry of Health, he has eloquently talked about it, are we going to see them relinquishing some of these funds going to the devolved unit? Will that happen?
It must happen, but it will not just happen by a legal notice. It will not happen just by a pronouncement. We must go around the table. There are programs which are ongoing. Are we together?
Yes.
And there are resources which are being run by those programs. Say, for example, the tuberculosis, HIV, and so forth. So you can well appreciate that outside a framework where the two levels of government sit together and agree, now we are handing this over to you. Are we together? The resources for this. And now, this is how you are going to run this program. Are we together? So you cannot just, you know, it's not going to be it's not a magical event. It is a deliberate effort. And let me say in that context, therefore, that the biggest gap from where I stand in terms of devolution is, as I said, I think the policy framework is generally there, but somehow we have been unable so far to persuade the two levels of government to sit together, to think together, to be, okay, let's agree. We want to transform our agriculture.
Yes.
Okay? And this is what we are going to do for agriculture. One of the things we are going to do is we must make sure all farmers have subsidized fertilizer. Okay? The other one is we must ensure that all farmers have got extension services. Are we together? And that we are also going to apply new technologies, we are going to plant new plants. This is how we are going to transform agriculture. The two levels are together at that point. They are sharing a vision for the sector of what is going to change. Now, at the moment, at that point, you also agree, these are the programs through which we are going to deliver this fertilizer subsidy. What is the national government going to do in terms of fertilizer subsidies? I was in the last summit, and I think it was credible because I have personally done a study many years ago with an international group which I had hired on a World Bank contract. It is not economical to order fertilizer, to import fertilizer in small lots. It makes a lot of sense to do it in a big way. But then there are many, well, that can be agreed at the summit level. Then there should also be agreed at the level of the ministry and the county governments sit together how this fertilizer is to be distributed. But until they have sat down to do that, and therefore, to cut a long story short, we have in the Constitution and also in the Intergovernmental Relations Act provided very clear that the two levels need to consult, to cooperate and to coordinate. Because you see, what cannot happen, for example, now, Ministry of Agriculture, if you went to them now, they will say, we can't just give it like that because we don't know whether the governors will distribute it, which is not correct. Are we together? But that is a simple excuse, okay? They cannot just, people have to sit down together. In health, it's even more intricate because you have all these global fund programs of HIV and so on and so forth. Okay, if you ask the people in the ministry, some of them might even argue that the counties do not have the capacity, which is not necessarily correct. I mean, the capacity is there. What has not happened is for the two levels of government to agree, these are important, these are strategic priorities of the country, and this is the policy framework within which we do that. Now, having agreed that, I am going to do this, and you are going to do this. In the HIV, you know, in this endemic diseases program, HIV, malaria, and TB. And this is how we are also going to get the donor funds flowing to the county governments. Now, so we must move away from talking to each other to sitting to each other. Counties, not just demanding, but demanding we sit down together and plan together for the sector.
Okay.
And do all and we also should design the programs together. Because if we have not designed the programs together, it's very difficult to hand them over to somebody else. And that is really the technical excuse. So if you go to the people in a ministry, they have a lot of technical excuse why they cannot let those things go ahead. because there hasn't been a proper situation. And of course, they will avoid it. So part of the challenge we have is to persuade the cabinet secretaries and the PSs in charge of state departments and the county governments to sit together, sector by sector. And even when we talk about the resources following the functions, we have to do it sector by sector, because that is the other problem. The government will be very shy, national government, I know. I'm going to be very shy to say, Chukwen, an extra 150 billion. But I think we can agree, and that's what work we started already as IGRTC. We can agree in health. If we are giving an extra 20 billion shillings for health because of the functions we have devolved, they are going to support the foreign programs at the county level. Okay? But for good and bad reasons, I know there will be resistance to say, patieni wao pesa tu. Okay? We go sector by sector and agree. This is, the health sector, counties need another 50 billion shillings, and these 50 billion shillings, 20 billion shillings is for the HIV, tuberculosis, and the malaria program, and this is what the county governments are going to do with it. 10 billion shillings is for primary health care, okay, and this is what the county governments are going to do to fulfill that. Outside that framework, it's going to be very difficult to confuse. And finally, let me say, Mr. Kibet, the idea of scientific costing is idealistic. Why? Because even with the best of wishes, and again I say that because in my previous work I've worked in all sectors, there is no sector where public resources are adequate to match the national demand. Are we together? To get quality education at the moment for Kenya, I don't think the government has enough money to do it. The most thing you can do is use what you have in the best way possible. And therefore, the way we are going to move the resources is by identifying those resources which are available. Because the treasury doesn't have additional money somewhere else. It is a question of going to the budgets of the ministries and the state departments and state agencies now and identify those resources which they need to transfer with the resources. If we do costing, we need much more money than the money which is available, which means, therefore, we are on a stalemate.
Okay.
Thank
and
you.
let me hand you over now to Evans. Evans, we're talking about the issue of duplication of roles. Now, I'll ask the chair, but I want to start with you, especially on the issue of bursaries. In your view, as a civil society where you are at right now, are counties supposed to be giving out bursaries?
Yeah, I think the Kenya Devolution Civil Society Organizations Working Group has a position, and our position, we stand with the Office of the Control of Budget. Something we have been engaging from time to time, even including going to court. There are organizations who are our members who have gone to court for CDF, for example, the NGCDF, to be declared unconstitutional. The point is, if you look at the functions that counties have, and the chair said it, the question is, are they adequately financed? Have counties delivered them optimally? So before even counties begin to encroach, that's unfortunate that counties are talking about we need more resources, but here there is a case of them encroaching into a national government function. If you look at the function, the unbundling of education function, I think counties are clearly, their mandate is clearly defined that they are supposed to focus on ECD, that is early childhood education, and this is a developmental stage, very critical. The vocational training, and that is very crucial in terms of creating, skilled labor and creating employable skills among young people, and that's it. When they allocate monies to, there is an opportunity cost. When they allocate monies to national government function, they starve county functions of resources. If you go to ECD centers in counties, my county included, you realize there are deficiencies in terms of ECD teachers, instructors in vocational training centers, feeding program, play material, equipment that is needed to deliver. Yet here counties are comfortably, you know, because of political expediency, allocating monies to a national government function. So for us, we stand with the control budget and saying every, where functions are clear, I know there are areas that are not as clear, there are gray areas, and IGRTC, that's where they exist to have, create platforms for this discussion. But where it is very clear, counties ought to stick to their functions and allocate adequate resources, financial, human resources, to deliver it optimally.
Okay. Chair, let me accord you 1 minute, given that we are running out of time. In that particular issue, given that you're the bridge between the national and the county governments, as IGTRC, who is supposed to offer bursaries? In 1 minute.
Offering bursaries is a double-edged sword for the counties. And let me say, there are cases where it would be justified. In the situation that, first, it's a fact that the national government bursaries between the MPs and what the national government provides, between what is given under CDF and other national bursaries, they are not enough. In places where there is extreme poverty, the county governments might find it necessary to do that intervention. But on the other hand, it is of course the case, as Mr. Kipet says, that in a sense also they legitimize. By doing so, they legitimize the national government continuing to do some of the county functions. So I think what we can say is that, going back to the point which Mr. Kipet made, both levels of government really need to, they can only operate optimally for Kenya by consulting each other. If you are going to do something which somebody else is supposed to do, you should first of all confirm that they are not able to do it. And that therefore you should do it on their behalf.
Chair.
And therefore a governor should be able to tell the national government, my people require these resources, let's agree you are not doing enough, and let it therefore be documented that the national government is not doing enough of it, and therefore I need to do it.
Thank you so much. Consultation is key there from Chair, clearly talking about it. He is a CPA Kithenji Kiragu, who is the chairman of the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee, IGTRC, and of course Chair will be consulting more on that particular issue as well. And Evans Kibet Boss, who is the national convener of the Kenya Devolution Civil Society Organization Working Group. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for making time for us. Now I want to hand you over back to Vihiga County. Let's get the thoughts of Governor Dr. Otichilo in terms of the bursaries, given that this was the main issue, Wycliffe, you can hear me, in the IBEC meeting that was spearheaded by the Deputy President, that is Professor Kithure Kindiki. These were some of the issues that the governor has raised. So if you could ask the governor, what were some of the resolutions in terms of counties offering bursaries to learners across the devolved units?
Then Zipia was ever then. Well, thank you so much, Hashim, and welcome back to the News Tech Show. This second segment, we are continuing with the discussion on devolution. This morning, we are still with the Governor of Vihiga County, Dr. Wilbur Otichilo, as we discuss the devolution. And the Governor, before we went on this short break, we talked about that functions that are still retained at the national level, yet they ought to have been devolved by now. And the key among them is the road issue.
Yes.
Markets.
Yeah.
Where does this stand?
I can tell you that the issue of roads is still a major issue, and we have discussed it at the Council of Governors, both at the IBEC and even at the summit, because the truth of the matter that the national government is solely in charge of national trunk roads, but the rest of the roads are county roads. But the truth is that we have agencies within the national government. We have KERA, we have Kura, who still carry out or maintain the roads. And the money allocated through the road maintenance levy is supposed to come to the counties. And initially it was coming until 2 or 3 years ago, when now, for some reasons, through the parliament, they discussed and decided that this money should no longer come to the counties, but it should go to KERA. And through KERA, the MPs should now be the ones responsible to select the roads to be maintained. So we find that for the last 2 to 3 years, counties have been stranded. Even in the roads that were the roads that were maintained in 2021, 2022, with the knowledge that we will get the money from the road maintenance levy, we never got. We still have those roads, those as pending bills. So as of now, we have a problem, and that's why even Council of Governors, we have gone to court, because the law is very clear how the money for road maintenance should be done. But now this money, with their own wisdom, the parliaments have decided that this money should be taken to the constituencies. And therefore now, the carer who works now with the national government, they are now the MPs are the ones who, with the carer, are implementing.
What are you going to do as a governor or within the COG? What are you going to do to ensure this money is devolved?
We have gone to court. We have tried to sit on table the way we have sat and discuss at the Council of Governors, at the IBEC. Nothing has happened. So we decided we go to court. So we have stopped. They were to get disbursed 10 billion to the constituencies. It has been stopped. And it's because of that reason, even at the parliament now, the parliament has refused to approve and pass a conditional grant bill, which allows us monies from donor-funded projects to come to us. So we have billions of monies that are supposed to be released to the counties. But because of this stalemate, the MPs deciding that because we have taken them to court, therefore now they want to punish us. So they have refused to pass the conditional grant bill, which has all these donor-funded projects. So now what it means, we have a lot of money from donor-funded programs that should be being used to develop this country. But this money now is just locked up because of this, I would say, competition.
That's a case of Parliament, National Assembly punishing the county government at the expense of service delivery.
Service delivery. Now, when it comes to markets are a devolved function.
Sure.
And therefore, it's important that as the government has mobilized money to build the markets, we should work very closely with the government through either the Department of Housing, the Department of Urban Planning, and so on. But to a large extent, some of these programs are implemented or are commenced without our knowledge. We only come to know about them when they are being implemented.
Even as we wind up, we are short of time, but then as we wind up, we've spoken about the functions, but then again there is a crucial issue that is also popping, and it has been there for quite a while. The inter-county boundary rows. A case in point is here. This is Vihiga, and there is also the neighboring Kisumu County. We have the Maseno area, and there is also Kiboso area. How is that going to end?
You know, this matter should have been discussed and resolved by IBC. IBC is the one that is given the mandate to do that. But because the IBC has not been constituted, the commissioners are not there. That's why this matter is still pending. And it's a very serious matter. Because here in Vihiga, we have had a very serious confrontation with the Kisumu over the Maseno boundary. Even when I was a member of parliament myself for 10 years, this matter I took to parliament. We discussed, but then it was said, it was given to IBC to look into the boundary. They never. This period, the MPs for Luanda have put this matter. Nothing has happened. Equally to Kiboso. Kiboso are here in between Kisumu and Vihiga and Nandi. We have a problem on the boundary. Some of my people who I know are our people, and we know they pay. They were paying their tax this way. they have been, is alleged that that area is in Nandi. Equally, Kiboswa Market, we knew that the road used to pass in the middle, and the one on the left was Kisumu, and on the right was Vihiga. But for some reasons, when a new road was built and it passed behind the shops, then now it became that new road becomes the new boundary, which was not the case. Yes. So we are seeing that this big chunk of Kiboswa is in Vihiga.
As we end up this live discussion, still remaining staying with that boundary issue, the implementation that is supposed to be done by the IBC is now, seems that the time has elapsed. When is this going to happen? Because it should be happening before the elections then.
Well, that's a very important issue which is being discussed. So I don't know, once they have the commissioners in place, whether they will be able to fast track. But I can assure you, it's not going to be easy. Issue of boundary is very emotive. And we have seen what is happening even in Makueni and Taita Taveta. You have seen what is happening in Mutito Andei. So I do not see that issue being resolved. But hopefully it can. Because the most important thing is that there are constituencies that were not, they did not fulfill the constitutional requirement to be constitution. And they were put there as special constituencies. Yes. Vihiga constituency being one of them. Right. So to me, that is one of the most important issues, that the commission who comes in, they must make sure that the constituencies that were taken as special, they be able to regularize and they become constituencies. Otherwise, here in Vihiga, and then we shall lose a Vihiga constituency.
All right. They say devolution is a gradual process in terms of implementation, but even as we wind this up, we've spoken about functions being retained at the national level, and also the late review of the boundaries. As we wind this up, what is your parting shot with regard to the implementation of devolution? What is your parting shot?
My parting shot is that we, between the national government and the county government, we are distinct governments, but we are interdependent. Yes. So it is important that we sit together and agree the way we have agreed which functions should be devolved. Yes. And therefore come up with a very clear program as we go to 2025, 2026, and ensure that we budget for the devolved functions. Yes. So that the money gets to the counties. Okay. And that's where we now take the counties accountable.
All right. Thank you so much. Resources should follow functions. Correct. That is the message that is being set out there by the governor of Vihiga County, that is Dr. Wilbur Otichilo, even as we speak about matters devolution. Thank you for keeping it Channel 1 on this live show, that is the News Check. Until next time, that's where I put it a cap, but keep it Channel 1, keep watching.
That is our very own Wycliffe, just having a one-on-one with the governor on the status of a devolution. We need to put a cap to our conversation here on News Check. I need to hand you over to my colleague, that is Kasichana Masha, who is up next with Kurunze Mashinani. So don't go too far for that particular conversation. Good afternoon for now.
Pindi tunapowasha vifaa vyetu, tunapata fursa ya kutangamana na wasikilizaji wetu.
Karibu sana thĩinĩ wa tabarĩra ya Rwiga.
Tunapeperusha utangazaji ulobobea katika habari,
Nĩ ũndũ wa macio na mangĩ maingĩ,
burudani,
Haha nĩ harĩa tũkoragwo tũkĩigua nyĩmbo mwaki nyĩmbo hot,
na hamasisho la kiroho. Usiachwe nyuma. Jiunge nasi kwa safari ya kufana katika 99.5 FM. Shoro FM.
realize Kikara akijua vile unafanya atakupeleka mbio sana.
You should be thanking me for taking care of this situation.
We've already done enough harm.
There is no we.
What?
Sio lazima mdosi.
Blackie didn't kill himself, did he?
Kikara akijua hii story, hata mimi naondolewa.
You are the law for crying out loud.
Do you trust Dan and his boss?
You cannot trust dirty cops.
Be careful.
Your advice is saidia saizi.
I found him at J&J.
Ulienda kufanya nini huko? You want me to ask you the same question twice? Let me call you after an hour or so. Huyo ni nani? Ni simu za kazi tu.
Can you tell me the reason why I'm here?
Loyalty cannot be taught. Mi sielewi. I don't understand this story yote. You must learn to be content with what you get.
The young generation awakens on Y254, the leading youth TV station in Kenya. We treat you to current affairs, entrepreneurship, health, and human interest conversations.